welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Brayden. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I'm joined, as always, by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Vols on Twitter. What you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, man, I'm doing well over here as our march to SEC Media Days continues. We've been having a hell of a time doing these team-by-team breakdowns, Shane, and we've been saving this one of our most loyal fan bases out there, the South Carolina Gamecocks. You ready to talk Shane Beamer and them Gamecocks, brother?
Oh, man, been listening to Sandstorm all morning. Getting pumped up for this one. That's why I was laughing. Listeners are probably like, what's wrong with Shane? He's already drunk. But no, the fact of the matter is we're doing this one really early. Mike was up really late. So, yeah, I'm doing a little day drinking here, Mike. But I am ready to talk some Gamecock football.
So, of course, last year, real quickly, we'll touch on what happened. 7-6 season. Shane Beamer's debut, 5th in the SEC East. But really, Shane, I mean, this was a very, very surprising result after the crash and burn of the Will Muschamp era and all the injuries that the Gamecocks had to deal with. You know, somewhat of an up and down season, I'd say, a little inconsistent from times, but got kind of crushed by some of the better teams they played, but did some crushing against some other teams and pulled off several upsets, Shane, which I think really speaks to what can be accomplished this upcoming season after just raiding the transfer portal. So again, 7-6 in Shane Beamer's debut season there, and that I think that caught a lot of people off guard around the SEC, just how well they played at times, don't you think?
Mike, me included. I'm watching that Tennessee-South Carolina game thinking, man, this is going to be a long year for the Gamecocks. Honestly, I thought there would be rumblings at the end of the season. Is Beamer the guy? You know, there were some question marks with the coaching staff coming into last season. He had a tough time getting some coordinators. And, you know, it just didn't feel like we were going to have a productive season. But, damn, they did, brother. I mean, it wasn't it wasn't perfect, but finishing, if I would have told you South Carolina ends the season with 7 wins, there's a lot of Gamecock fans that would be happy with that. And just the way that they produced toward the tail end of the season is even better, because when you're looking as a fan, you want to see that improvement through the season. And I think we saw that with South Carolina.
Yeah, and another thing we got going here for the Gamecock, Shane, staff continuity. All 3 coordinators return. Only had 2 assistants leave the program. One went to be a high school head coach, and he got replaced by Doty Wright. So that's our new tight ends coach, Shane. And, you know, this is a very interesting hire here, because Doty Wright, last 2 seasons, Shane, was an NFL assistant coach with the New York Giants. And before that, he was UAB offensive line coach and running game coordinator. But more importantly, Shane, the 3 years before that, he was at Alabama, the director of player personnel. So he was kind of in charge of helping the recruiting class get built and the behind the scenes of what Nick Saban and company are doing down there. Yeah. Now they can translate that to the South Carolina Gamecocks. So, hey, I think this is a upgrade here for the South Carolina Gamecocks and Doty Wright.
Absolutely, and that's you know, there's a lot of people that talk about South Carolina being, poor man tight end if you will. You think about some of the greats that come through there, like Jared Cook and Hayden Hurst, you know, just to name a few. This is a pivotal position, coach, that for a position that knows how to produce talent. South Carolina finds a way to put tight ends in the NFL, so I think it's a great hire.
And the only other assistant they lost, Shane, unfortunately, Mike Peterson, to the Florida Gators. So you hate to lose any assistant, but you really hate to lose one to a divisional opponent. But I think Shane Beamer rebounded well here, hired Sterling Lucas, another former NFL assistant. He was the assistant D-line coach for the Jaguars last season. The 4 years before that, he's with the Baltimore Ravens. And how about this, Shane? You love when I get these little nuggets of lists you never even heard of. But On 3 Sports, they annually put out rising assistant coaches that you need to be on watch to one day, rise in the coaching ranks. They got Sterling Lucas on this list. So Here we go. I think we got a really promising assistant coach here for the South Carolina Gamecocks.
It's funny. Is growing up, there was no such thing as everybody gets an award. It was like there was just like a handful of awards that got handed out at the end of the season, and there was no sugarcoating it. But I do love lists. I do love these different awards that they come up with. Everybody's getting a trophy these days, and South Carolina's got some on their coaching staff, so that's awesome, man.
But of course, what really matters, Shane, is the players on the field. And, we've got a couple of issues to address here in Columbia, but they did it with the transfer portal. We'll get to that in a moment. But returning production for the Gamecocks, Shane, only 38% of the passing yards. Luke Doty is your leading passer, but of course we're adding Spencer Rattler, so you can
just that little guy at Oklahoma. I mean, you may have heard of him.
So you can completely overlook that. Rushing yards, again, that's another one. Only returning 30% of the rushing yards from last season, but again, we've addressed that via the transfer portal. Wake Forest running back Christian Beal-Smith led Wake Forest in rushing the last 2 years. Now he's a South Carolina Gamecock. 67% of the receiving yards return, with Josh Vann being our leader for the Gamecocks. But again, this is another position that we really attacked via the transfer portal. And then offensive line, 89% of the starts, all 5 returning linemen are back from late last season. So we've got the makings of a very, very improved offense if all these pieces gel together. You know what?
Well, and that's why there's so much hype coming out of Columbia, Mike, is because we're expecting that to gel together. Even looking at the running back production, I love Kevin Harris, but there was a lot of times he met a loaded backfield. I mean, there was 8-9 in the box because that was all South Carolina was able to do. That's not going to be the case this coming up here, like you said, with the via transfer portal. So I think the offensive line is key, but what they're bringing back is skilled positions. I think, honestly, man, we're going to get into it. I think this running back room improves tremendously, and again, I don't want to get too far. You're on chapter 3, and I'm trying to get to chapter 8 here, Mike. But I am very excited about this backfield of South Carolina. Not just the quarterback. I think this running back. This committee that they're going to be putting on the field, a lot of people are going to realize, man, South Carolina's got some serious talent back there.
Yeah, no doubt. But sticking with the defense for just a minute, Shane, we returned 54% of our tackles. Brad Johnson and his 74 lead the way there. Tackles for loss, 44% return. Jordan Strahan had 6 last year. Sacks, 48%, with Zach Pickens leading the way with 4. And interceptions, 53% return with the great Cam Smith. He had 3. He was your leading returning interceptor last season for the Gamecocks. So a lot to replace on defense as well, but a ton of talent, and that is another side of the ball that we have attacked with the transfer portal. And that's kind of the big story in the offseason in Columbia. So let's get to it. I think you could make the case, Shane, that South Carolina, no team did better in the SEC than South Carolina attacking the transfer portal, getting needs and getting impact players right out the gate. And really,
Mike, I'll tell you, if we were handing out awards for transfers, South Carolina would be the winning percentage. They would have the award because they are transfer you this season. But sorry, I'm getting excited because This team is going to look so much different than it did last year. And it was good last year, but it's going to be great this season.
Well, here you are, Shane, complaining about all these mythical trophies, and you're handing them out here to the South Carolina Gamecocks.
I said, since we're in tis the season,
But real quick, the guys that South Carolina lost to the transfer portal, you never want to lose anybody, but not a ton of impact here, Shane. E.J. Jenkins went to Georgia Tech. Kobe Fields, a linebacker, went to LSU. Jason Brown, who, he was pivotal down the stretch to get you a couple wins. He's now at Virginia Tech. And Devonta Davis, defensive lineman, jumped to Virginia. That's basically it when you're talking about potential impact players leaving.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about incoming, though, Shane, we got to start with Spencer Rattler. Over 4,500 passing yards, 40 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and over 70% completion percentage. And he just single-handedly, I've been saying this all off season. I'm not ready to give this guy the Heisman or anything like that, but he raises the profile of the South Carolina Gamecocks, their prospects this season, and their recruiting, I really do think, for years to come, because he makes South Carolina a destination program. I mean, you just cannot overstate how big of a win this was for Shane Beamer and company.
Absolutely. I mean, how many times we say this about coaches? You need to go out here and get a sexy hire. That's what they did. They went out here and got a sexy quarterback, because this is going to make South Carolina fun to watch. There's going to be I'm sure there was a couple games penciled in this year. If you were looking at it last season, you're saying, yeah, I could see that on SEC noon. I could see that just getting penciled in somewhere late night, But this is now a team that is marketable mainly because of the quarterback play. So expect that right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm. And joining Spencer Rattler in Columbia, Shane, when I went back and watched Spencer Rattler, the other guy that really jumped out to me was tight end Austin Stogner, also from Oklahoma, of course. 47 catches, 654 yards, 8 touchdowns, and he is legitimately, Shane, 6'7". So just a monster target out there that's already got that rapport with Rattler. He was coached by Shane Beamer at Oklahoma. Austin Stogner should slide right into a big role for the Gamecocks.
Absolutely.
Now, we really needed to attack receivers. I love this guy, Antoine Juice Wells from James Madison. Shane, he was at James Madison for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
He's third all time in that school's history in touchdowns. 21 touchdowns in 2 seasons. 9th in receiving yards, 9th in catches. And again, he did all that damage in just 2 seasons. They also added...
It's hard to believe we have the same middle name, too,
They also added Corey Rucker from Arkansas State. Shane, check out his numbers in just 2 seasons. 75 catches, 1,279 yards, 14 touchdowns. I mean, my goodness, we don't need these guys to come in here and dominate the SEC. We need them to just contribute, because we got Josh Vann, we got Spencer Rattler, we got Jakeem Bell, we've got Austin Stogner. I mean, this is what you want. I mean, I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, Shane, but this may be too bold, but remember LSU under Joe Burrow, it was like, who's this guy? Who's that guy? This guy's making plays. That guy's making plays. That's what you need if you want to be an elite SEC offense, is just multiple weapons across the board. You know what?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's going to be an exciting brand. That's important, too, because you're thinking about future recruits coming to that school. Well, they're going to open it up, man. This isn't an offense we've seen in South Carolina since Spurrier, man.
Mm-hmm. And then we've added a couple running backs here. Christian Beal-Smith, the guy I mentioned from Wake Forest, 44 career games, 22 career starts, 1,871 rushing yards, 14 touchdowns the last 2 seasons. And again, he's likely just going to be, I don't want to call him a backup, but we got Marshawn Lloyd back there. So we don't need Christian Beal-Smith to come in here and be the workhorse. They also added Lavoisier Carroll from Georgia, who was the number 6 high school running back in the country. He got to Georgia, and they put him at defensive back. He's coming to South Carolina to play running back. So we should have one hell of a running back room, which is something that you pointed to. You know what?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the strongest room in South Carolina here. The thing I love about it, though, it's not just one player. It seems like South Carolina got in a rut of just giving the ball to one man. You don't have to do that now. It is a committee. And I love Lloyd. We've talked about him being a breakout player, a breakout candidate this season. You do that by keeping him rested and bringing him in certain types of plays. So I think it's going to be an electric room and exciting brand.
Now, the two big defensive additions via the transfer portal, Devontae Reed from Central Michigan. This was a guy many SEC programs were after. He started for 4 years at Central Michigan, 287 tackles, 3 picks. He was all MAC the last 2 years. He should slide right into a starting role at South Carolina. They got a defensive lineman from NC State, Terrell Dawkins, 42 tackles. He was NC State Rookie of the Year in 2020, and he was a little banged up last year. Otherwise, he would have had an even bigger 2021. He's got 3 years to play at South Carolina. So, again, some nice additions on the defensive side, too.
Yeah, well, that's where they need it, Mike. I think this offense obviously is going to be improved. It's the defense I'm a little worried about, so I'm glad they were aggressive in the portal.
And you talk real quick about the recruiting. You know, not as good as you'd want it. Number 24 in the country, but they did lay in some potential impact players on the defensive side of the ball. Shane Keenan Nelson, the safety, 4-star. Stone Blanton, the linebacker, also a 4-star. Anthony Rose, a safety, and linebacker Donovan Westmoreland. So you like to see that talent. And again, we're at the point basically in Columbia with 2 cycles, 2 transfer portals in here. We don't need these guys to come in and start. We just need them to come in and provide some depth, particularly when we get into SEC play. And I think you're getting it from some of those guys.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. We need competitive depth. We need these boys to grow up real quick because they are going to get some playing time, especially when it gets later in the season. So, not the best recruiting class, but it was in areas they really needed it. I think that was what was most important there.
Yeah, and we should have a little asterisk there. The recruiting class does not factor in the transfer portals, which that would increase it significantly,
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, let me just say, Mike, if it was, I mean, it would be a top 10 class, easy.
Oh, yeah. But, hey, as for ranking the offensive position group, Shane, I think we're going to be in agreement here. Running backs. I think it's going to be strongest position group for South Carolina with Marshawn Lloyd, Christian Beal-Smith. We've talked about Rashad Amos, Lavoisier Carroll. We go 4 deep here at running back at South Carolina.
And you will see all of them probably in the first game. That's the beautiful thing. You're not going to know who's got the ball.
Now, you could go any different direction on second position group, but because of Spencer Rattler and his star power, I'm going quarterbacks. Number 2, we got Luke Doty behind him, who, still a lot of promise with Luke Doty. Colton Gauthier, the second-year player, and then they signed a freshman 4-star Brayden Davis. I think we got a pretty strong quarterback room here, too.
Yeah, and you kind of have to, man. I mean, when you think about the last quarterback came through, bagging groceries up there in Kansas somewhere, this is a step up. This is a development. The position's going to look so much better just because you've got somebody that is a proven leader and a hell of a quarterback. So I'm going to go quarterback number 2 as well here. It's close, though, because I really love that receiver room, brother.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going number 3, Shane. We got Josh Vann, of course. Standout player, Juice Wells, Shane's other cousin, it sounds like. To carry on Joyner, man, let's not forget about the X factor he brings to this offense. He single-handedly won him the bowl game. Amarion Brown, Xavier Levitt, Corey Rucker, again the Arkansas State transfer, Chad Tyrell, Rico Powers, Omega Blake. We got a hell of a receiver room here.
There's individual talent. There's X factors all across that side of the ball. When you think about Madden and somebody getting heated up, that it could happen in any position, especially in that receiver room.
And you could kind of throw this guy in, but he's listed as a tight end. One guy that we haven't really even hit on, Jakeem Bell, Shane, who star of the bowl game.
Right.
He may be the biggest breakout player that's not a quarterback in the SEC this year, and you team him with Austin Stogner, My goodness, Shane, we got a hell of a 1-2 there.
Exactly. It's there's going to be this fireworks, man. It's like the 4th of July or South Carolina. That's why they're so happy, man. I'm never mad. You talk to any Gamecock fan right now, it's almost too much. You know what I'm saying? They're like my little kid. They got a new toy and they can't wait to get home and play with it. You know, that's South Carolina fans right now, and rightfully so.
And that's last but not least the offensive line, Shane. We've returned 5 guys with starting experience: Jalen Nichols, Eric Douglas, Javon Gwynn, Dylan Wanham, Rashawn Lee, and we got quality backups here: Ja'Kai Moore, Hank Manos, Trey Jones, Tyshawn Wanamaker. It's pretty wild. You got that, 5 guys with returning experience, and you could legitimately put them last on the rankings.
Yeah.
But again, that kind of speaks to the potential of this entire offense for South Carolina.
And to be honest, Mike, part of the reason why they improved throughout the season was because that offensive line did. So this is a group. It's not sexy, Nobody's going to be wearing their jerseys, but this is a unit that needs to stay together, get better, because seriously, they're protecting the franchise back there.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, skipping over to the defensive side, Shane, I think we're going to be led by the defensive backs. We got Cam Smith. He's an all-SEC player. Got to lead with him. R.J. Roderick, Darius Rush. We mentioned the transfer, Devontae Reed. We got Marcellus Dial, David Spaulding, O'Donnell Fortune. This is a very, very talented and deep group of defensive backs that the Gamecocks got to work with.
And if you're talking talent on that side of the ball, that's the position you really want, because there's potential shootouts that these teams are going to get involved with. And if you got some good defensive backs, you can kind of, outscore them. And that's kind of where you want. It's deep, and I would say the best of course, I don't want to get in rankings, but the best part of their defense for sure.
Now, the defensive line is pretty loaded too, Shane, with guys with massive, massive potential. We need these guys to step up, particularly against the run. But, Jordan Birch, he was number 1 overall prospect when he came out. Zach Pickens, he was also a 5-star. Jordan Strahan, who came out and was a breakout star last year. MJ Webb, Alex Huntley.
Is he kin to Michael Strahan? Just curious.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. Have you seen his teeth lately? I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
Alex Huntley, Tonka Hemingway, and then the NC State transfer Terrell Dawkins. This is a very deep and talented group too for the Gamecocks.
Well, that's the key word there, potential. Yeah, these guys got all the potential. They had all the hype coming out of high school, man. And if any group takes a step forward, and if it's this one, watch out, brother.
And that's no slight to the linebackers either. We got some talented linebackers here. Brad Johnson, Sherrod Green, Muhammad Kaba is a guy that I keep hearing great things about. And then, another Debo down here in Columbia, Shane, Debo Williams. So I think with that foursome there, really solid group for the Gamecocks.
Absolutely. And if you can get that defensive front going, it only makes the linebackers better. So I like this crew, but we need that defensive line, brother. That's my star, my asterisk right there.
And last here, the specialist, Shane, Parker White, the outstanding kicker, he's graduated. Yeah. So now we got to rely on Mitch Jeter, who he did kick a 47-yard field goal in the spring game, but showcase his leg a little bit there, but could be a drop off. But we do return Kai Kroger at punter, all SEC freshman 2 seasons ago, an outstanding punter. But South Carolina's going to be in some toss-up type games. They really need Mitch Jeter to prove he can live up to the hype of Parker White.
Brother, there's going to be some coin toss games that you're going to get into here in a little bit, and it will come down to special teams. When you said Parker White, I was like, man, is he coming back? I thought he was like, what's his name down there in Auburn? Here we got another one. But no, he's officially out of there. So yeah, new special teams. We just again, we're going to have some close games. We're going to need everything from everybody.
Well, speaking of the schedule, Shane, I know that's your favorite part. So
yes, sir.
Let's just dive right into it with the season opener, of course, at home against a little, I don't want to say dangerous team, but a team that cannot be overlooked. Cousin Shay knows all about overlooking this one. Georgia State, right out the gate. Ooh, doggy.
Why you do that, man? You always. We're going to be talking about Georgia State when I'm 85 years old. You're going to remind me that they whooped Tennessee's ass one year. But, this is a team that people should stop scheduling. You think about Auburn, you think about Tennessee. And the last thing you want to do is overlook a program, because this one has shown us that they come prepared every time they play an SEC team. So I don't think it's a close game, but I've said that the last two SEC opponents they face. But give me South Carolina to win here.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's a tricky one, Shane. This could be the game of the week in the SEC, Week 2, South Carolina at Arkansas. That's going to tell us a lot about both of these teams. We're very high on the Razorbacks, but even optimistically, could you see South Carolina going on the road and beating the Razorbacks?
Oh, Mike, this is a tough one, man, because I really love Arkansas. I just love them top to bottom, both sides of the football. I just think they've got it. But I want to be optimistic as well for South Carolina fans, and I think one disadvantage to this game is the fact it's played so early in the season. But talk about equalizer, it's quarterback position, and being optimistic, I got to think that Spencer Rattler comes in there just balling. I gotta come in there thinking that this offensive line is better and that this running back group is legit, like we just put on a pedestal. If all those pieces fall together, yes, they can beat Arkansas. So optimistically, I got South Carolina going 2-0 here, baby.
And one thing that may help them, Shane, they've already scheduled the kickoff time and everything. It's going to be 11 a.m. Central Time out there in Arkansas, so it's not going to be a night game. Arkansas fans already kind of peeved about that, but hey, I don't blame them. Yeah. But that does help South Carolina's chances. But I think I'm going to pull a cousin Shane, like you did against Arkansas when they go A&M and Alabama, because that's who South Carolina's got. Georgia the next week. They got them at home. I'm going to split the difference, kind of like you did. Win one, lose one, optimistically, because, hell, I already went on Paul Feinbaum and said they're going to take down Georgia Bulldogs, so I kind of got to stick with that. But, I think even if you trade those, if you lose to Georgia but you beat Arkansas, I still think you're fired up if you're a Gamecock fan.
Yeah, it's a shame you couldn't pause Feinbaum and just say, hey, can we edit that out? Because we're going to say it every time we talk an East opponent here. I just don't see anybody beating Georgia right now optimistically. So I've got South Carolina losing their first game, but potentially being 2-1 at this point. I think South Carolina fans are still happy. And I think it's close. I think it's a close game. I just think Georgia's too deep. Maybe late in the game that starts to show a little bit.
But getting Georgia early is kind of key in my mind. I think the only shot you got at upsetting them is early.
Well, and that's the key, man. The tape will be out after week 3, so not that it won't be week 2, but the less they can show against those first two opponents, the better they are when they go against Georgia.
Now, we get a break in the schedule here. Charlotte comes to town. Easy. I don't even know. Well, I know Charlotte, but I don't even know if that's the right Charlotte I'm thinking of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, unless it's the Panthers, man. They ain't got it. I mean, this thing ain't no ball game at all. You know what I'm saying? Right. Nothing against Charlotte. I like the area, but I don't like their football team.
Now, next is South Carolina State. I didn't even know that was a school. Did you?
No, again, made up. This is like their JUCO team. You know.
They played the freshman team.
That's it. But it's important. You're coming off 2 really tough games, Arkansas, Georgia. You got 2 cupcakes to get your shit right again. You know what I'm saying? So I think that the scheduling, whoever did this one was perfect. But South Carolina's moving at this point.
Now, this could be the most critical game of the season, Shane, at Kentucky. Kentucky owns you right now, South Carolina, and that's got to be one of the biggest thorns in your side. If you want to elevate this program to being a true SEC East contender, you've got to turn the tides with this series. What are the chances it happens at Lexington this year, Shane?
Tough ball game. I love Kentucky here. Optimistically, I'm thinking that defensive front, the one that we just talked about, has found their identity, and they are playing at that 5-star level because that's what they're going to have to have. They're going to have to shut down Rodriguez if he's playing. They're going to have to shut down this rushing attack and put it on the quarterback and make Will win this game. And if it goes toe-to-toe with them, just like they did with the Tennessee Volunteers, there's a good shot they could lose that game. So, optimistically, I'm going South Carolina here.
Ooh, 5-1. Hey, I think the Gamecocks would take that going into the bye.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Again, how can you rule right now in July? How can you rule that option out? You know, I think if the stars are aligned, South Carolina's going to be playing some killer football here.
Now you got 2 weeks to prepare for Texas A&M coming to Columbia. They just demolished you last season, but Texas A&M will be coming off. Well, they also got 2 weeks to prepare, but they will be coming off the Alabama game. So who knows where their psyche is. Optimistically, could you see South Carolina beating the Aggies?
It's a tall glass of water, brother, and I just don't think they got it yet. I think they're getting there. I think that the team is developing and getting better, but they're just not deep enough to compete with the Aggies. The fact that Texas A&M does have 2 weeks to, whether they lose or win, get their minds right back on the schedule. There's no overlooking South Carolina here. So I'm unfortunately going to have a loss here for the Gamecocks.
Well, how about the following week, Shane? Another home game. Missouri comes to Columbia. You got to like the Gamecocks in that one, I would think.
This is a rivalry we don't talk enough about, I don't know what the award is, the old Columbia Trophy, but this is always an exciting game to watch, and it sometimes comes down to the final possession. But I think South Carolina's just got too many weapons this year.
Yeah. How about the following week at Vanderbilt? I mean, hell, Vanderbilt nearly knocked them off. So, I think you can make the case South Carolina, they may have overlooked Vanderbilt. They won't be doing it this year.
The fact that I know when that game was played because I remember somebody telling me that it's a ball game, it's like you can almost remember it. So, no, this will not be a ball game at all this year. South Carolina destroys Vandy.
I think that was me that told you, Shane. We were at Tennessee Ole Miss or Ole Miss at Tennessee.
We were sitting there in the stands, and I was like, wait, what? And it was a shame we couldn't pull it up on our phones.
Now here's a tricky one, Shane. They managed to beat this team last year, but much tougher in Gainesville at Florida. Optimistically, could South Carolina knock off the Gators 2 years in a row?
Absolutely. Why not? They did it last year. Florida was talented last year, and still South Carolina won. And I think South Carolina's even, like you want to talk improvements, I think the South Carolina roster has improved significantly more than the Florida Gators. So at this point, we're talking a top 15 team with South Carolina. If the only loss they got is with Georgia. And so, they're finally getting the respect they deserve. They go down to Gainesville. Haven't done it in a long time, but I think they could sneak away with a victory down there.
Ooh, let's see if you'll say that the following week, Shane, because Tennessee comes to town. And, kind of the same things I said about Kentucky can apply. South Carolina needs to jump Tennessee if they, truly want to take that next step in the SEC to become a true contender to them Georgia Bulldogs. Last season was pretty lopsided, but it was in Neyland Stadium. Thoughts on can South Carolina swing that thing back, beat Tennessee at home?
Well, Mike, second half was my sign. When they saw how they could slow this Heupel attack, they did it, man. And there was a moment in the third, fourth quarter that I said, "Oh shit, are we going to let these guys back in it?" I mean, that had me a little worried, and that showed me good coaching. That showed me a good adjustments, but that also sticks in the back of Beamer's mind. So I think he'll be better prepared when he faces the Tennessee Volunteers this time. And they've got more weapons, Mike. They can be a little bit more diversified over there with their offense, with running and passing attacks. So, yeah, this is a coin toss game for me, and anytime we're talking optimism, I'm going to lean toward the team I'm rooting for here, and unfortunately, it's not going to be my Volunteers.
So that means the finale, Shane, at Clemson.
Yes.
Tigers have owned the Gamecocks here lately, but will that be changing this fall, you think?
Brother, I've been telling you for a long time that Clemson is is falling apart. This is they put themselves on a pedestal that they're the next Alabama and that Dabo's the next Nick Saban. No, I don't think that's it at all. I really do think that Clemson's on their way back down to reality, and that ends with icing on the cake and South Carolina getting their first victory in a long time. So give me the upset over Clemson, because if I'm being optimistic, Mike, at this point, we're talking about a one-loss South Carolina team that has played – or two-loss, I apologize, two-loss South Carolina team. Still, a top 25 team. They're playing at the best of their ability. This defensive line has found their identity. This quarterback and Rattler and the running back, they've got all the tangible pieces to beat Clemson, and I think if the stars are aligned and we're being optimistic, Mike, we cannot rule out the fact that South Carolina can beat Clemson this year.
Dang, so optimistically, you got the Gamecocks sitting at 10-2 this upcoming season, huh?
Absolutely, man. It's all about offense, baby. It's all about quarterbacks. I'm buying in the fact that Spencer is going to fit well in the SEC. Now, I mean, he's got a lot to prove. He's got to come out here. I mean, we may be looking at that Arkansas game saying, oh, shit, can we erase this podcast? You know what I'm saying? There's always that chance, but there's you got to also have the chance that they take the step forward. I saw it in their football team last year. Why can't we see it grow into this season?
I think I'm going to be a little less bold than you, Shane, but I agree with a lot of your points. But I think I'd lean more towards 9-3, being very optimistic. And here's the main reason, Shane. I've got 3 games as listed. This is kind of how I do it. Games they should win, games they unlikely to win, and then toss-ups. Right. And I have 3 unlikely wins: Georgia, A&M, at Clemson. But hell, I'm already on record that they'll beat Georgia, so I got to throw that into the win column. But that means we still got 4 games I consider toss-up, Shane: at Arkansas, at Kentucky, at Florida, and home for Tennessee. So I just think it's a little too much to ask them to win all those toss-up games. I'm not sure which one they'd lose, but maybe for your sake, I'd say Tennessee. But, at Kentucky, it's kind of hard to pick South Carolina to beat Kentucky until we actually see it. So realistically, that might be a better option. And also, hell, we were on here just the other day saying Florida could be a 10-win team. So that is going to be a very, very difficult game as well. So that's kind of why I lean a little bit more towards 9-3.
I didn't know this was the realistic pod. I thought this was the optimistic pod, but whatever. All right, Debbie Downer, we'll go with that one then.
I think that's a hell of a step up, though.
No, I know. I'm messing with you. Any of those 2 results, I think Gamecock fans are happy. The main thing is they want to have the big game, and it's been a while since they beat Georgia. But if you can beat Georgia, A&M, or Clemson, one of those teams, I think that's your Super Bowl, man. That's your national championship, especially Clemson, just getting that monkey off your back. But, they're getting there. That's the thing. This team has the potential to beat those teams. It's going to take perfect conditions, but it could happen.
Now, let me ask you this, Shane. Moving beyond from Clemson, just because that's a hated rival, and we could just put that to the top of the list, but which one do you think is the most important game of the season for South Carolina to have a good year? And again, not considering Clemson. So I'm just sticking to SEC opponents here, Shane. At Arkansas, week 2, which again, I think you could lose that and still have a hell of a year because that's a West opponent. So I think that the answer is probably in an East team. But at Kentucky, Tennessee at home, or at Florida, which game do you think is the most important for South Carolina to win in order to have a great season?
I'm going to cheat a little bit on this one, and I think for national attention, it needs to be Arkansas because there's going to be a lot of hype coming out of South Carolina. It's just going to keep picking up steam as we get closer to the season, and that can all be that can be tore away week 2 if they go and get destroyed by Arkansas Razorbacks. People stop paying attention, and people need to pay attention to South Carolina. These recruits need to pay attention to South Carolina. You do that by beating Arkansas and being competitive against the other teams that you play later in your season. So I think that is the obvious answers. Now for morale and for fan support, I think Tennessee is very important, but I think that Kentucky game is also important. But South, if I had to pick one, I'm going to go Tennessee just because it's at home. It's a game they need, because there was a lot of memes coming out after that one. And Tennessee fans, we love our Twitters, and we got on there. And we made sure that you saw that we kicked your ass, So I think, you know how it is. If somebody beats you up, you go home, you work out for a year, you come back, and you want to fight them again. It's like every Rocky movie ever. That's what's happening in South Carolina. So I'm taking Arkansas for the fan support, or for national media attention, but I'm going to go Tennessee for actual fan support here.
And you might be onto something there, Shane, because I'm a huge believer. I don't know about you, but I'm a believer in momentum in college football. Yeah. And if you win early, particularly at Arkansas, where everyone's going to be picking against you, if you tell me the Gamecocks can beat Arkansas on the road, then I fully I got no problem with you saying they can win at Kentucky, at Florida, or at home against Tennessee. Hell, if they could beat at Arkansas, they could win all those games.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's it. It's all about momentum. Some people say it's fake, but I think momentum is real, and I think it happens every day, and it gets lost in some of these storylines. But South Carolina, the script, they're writing it. Is this going to be the season, or is this just another season? So I think we'll know by week 2.
Yeah, and I can't thank you enough, Shane, for getting us all these South Carolina fans with just 10-2 record. Man, they're going to build a statue of you down there. You know what?
Well, I seriously, I hope they win every game except one. So they just spent millions of dollars on that cock statue. They might as well get something out of it.
Well, brother, hey, I think that was another great edition of our fall camp preview. You got any other Gamecock questions before we close the chapter on South Carolina?
Real quick, Mike. All right, best offensive player, who you got?
I think Spencer Rattler is the easy answer. So I'm going to go Jaheim Bell, because I think you got to get him more involved. When they did that last season, hell, I think they were, that's when they were at their mightiest. So, someone to really elevate that offense aside from the obvious quarterback, I'm going Jaheim Bell.
I'm going Lloyd, man. I've been, not to sound creepy, but I've been watching videos of this kid play since 16 years old. And I kept thinking he is going to be the next great NFL player to come out of some college football team. South Carolina landed him, and it's been a rocky start with injuries and stuff, but I think this is his breakout season. So give me Lloyd for offensive MVP. Defense, who you got?
Well, real quick before I get to defense, Shane, I think that speaks to the fact of just how deep and talented the South Carolina is, that we could legitimately make points for a number of players on offense. So,
yeah,
again, that's why we're so excited about South Carolina. But for the defense, I almost want to say Jordan Birch, because he could live up to that 5-star potential. That could be an answer. But I'm going Cam Smith, the corner. I think he's your best defensive player there in Columbia.
I'm going Birch on defense. We saw flashes of it last year. I think he improves on that, and I think he's one of the next great first rounders playing in the NFL. So he does that by taking a step forward this year. And then if you're picking somebody on the roster to win the Heisman Trophy, who's it going to be, and why is their answer going to be the same?
It's got to be the Rattler, man. Spencer Rattler. He's already got his logo. He's one of the biggest names in college football, and if he takes this offense to another gear, the accolades will come. I want to see him earn that before we start giving him that Heisman praise. You know what?
Absolutely, man. The kid has taken it over. I've watched a lot of commercials already. The NIL, I mean, he is all in, man. That kid's made more money down there in one summer than we're going to make our whole lives, Mike. So I've got you. The campaign has already started, and it will continue while he's down there. So I say Rattler for the Heisman. So. But that's my list, and I think 10-2, 9-3. I think South Carolina fans are going to be extremely happy with those results.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, brother, I can't thank you enough for showing up for another outstanding SEC Fall Camp preview edition with Media Days right around the corner. We got more of these coming, but that's going to do it for this episode of the show. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right, see you guys. Go Cox.